So everybody's heard about ClimateGate already, I'm sure. But what happened today, December 8th, is there was a document leaked. It's dubbed the Danish Text, and it was a draft of an agreement written up by the Danes, but it was collaborated with the United States and the UK, and this text has developing nations just really upset because it's completely unfair to them. And not only that, but it takes power away from the UN governing ordinance and gives all the global warming financing, or the carbon financing. It gives the power to the World Bank. So it's got a whole bunch of people really upset. Here's a video of CNN covering it.
And scientists are at the UN summit in Copenhagen trying to figure that out right now. Becky Anderson is there. And Becky, this conference started with a hacked email scandal calling into question the very science of climate change. Today, another scandal is hanging over it. I mean, this one involving a leaked memo. What is going on?
That's right, Campbell. It's day 2 here, and if you thought the toxic clouds of ClimateGate had lifted, well, think again. It's got all sort of polluted here in Copenhagen, this time by a conspiratorial and potentially much more divisive event. And this is what I'm talking about. This document has been dubbed the Danish Text. Now, it was written up by the Danes on behalf, we are told, of the US and the UK, and it has got the developing nations here in a right old spin, because effectively this proposal, if it were to be agreed on by some of the bigger nations here, would effectively give rich nations significant power over the billions of dollars that would be distributed to poorer countries as a result of any new agreement. I've got to say that we can't quite work out what role this proposal would or might take. The negotiations, of course, are going on behind closed doors, but this has been leaked by the Guardian newspaper, and as we understand, it is now doing the rounds, specifically with India, Brazil and China. Now, the sense from the other developing nations here, I'm talking about the smaller ones, and don't forget that climate change is so important to those smaller nations. It's where you're seeing the visible effects of global warming. They say they are being cut out of negotiations. They say that the Danes, on behalf of the US and indeed the UK, are going after the big guys and trying to drive a wedge between Brazil, India and China and the rest of the developing world. What they're saying is simply this: don't leave us out of the meat and potato negotiations, the bargaining that's going on behind closed doors before these world leaders turn up next week. This could be really big. We don't know how it's going to play out at this point, but it's certainly extremely divisive and potentially quite destructive to any political agreement we might get by the end of next week. Campbell?
Oh, so bottom line, Becky, President Obama could be really walking into a firestorm next week.
Our planet was destroyed by global warming.
So it's good to see that CNN's actually covering this. You can find the text on the guardian.co.uk website. Here's the actual text here. Now, I'm not really a lawyer, so I can't really analyze this the best, but according to The Guardian, the document says that, for one, this creates a difference just between developing nations. Now there's some that are going to be called vulnerable nations, or the most vulnerable. So it creates a new class of developing nations, and then it hands the power over from the UN to the World Bank. I mean, none of us really want the UN controlling this whole thing, but I think the World Bank having power here is a little worse. And then by 2050, the document, or the draft, states that the poor nations could only emit 1.44 tons of carbon per person, but rich nations could still emit 2.67. So it just got them really upset, and I guess we'll have to see how this whole thing plays out.